Greetings folks, this video is going to be all about the setup of my Ranger 1600, which I showed on the recent coastal cruising video. DJI HD air unit on there, R9M access FR-Sky receiver. The GPS, I don't know what they're called really, it could be a Neo M8N puck or something like that. It's one of the best GPSs around, most rapid for discovering satellites, and only problem is it has a really stiff shielded cable on it, which is good and bad, I guess. I'll also show you the iNav setup as well. 3D printed mount found on Thingiverse, link in the description. Air unit, the R9 and the GPS are reasonably close together, but I've had absolutely no problems finding satellites, keeping control, and absolutely interference-free video, so that amount of separation is absolutely fine. I don't go super long range, it's just not legal. I wouldn't show it on my channel anyway. I'm only using the R9 on the 100 milliwatts, that's all I need. I've replaced the supplied motor mount disc with a carbon fibre motor mount. I found one that just fits nicely. The thing is that takes out the slight thrust angle, and in that last flight I actually did notice that I was having to hold a bit of rudder to keep the range of flying straight, so I may try adjusting the thrust angle a little bit. I think it was on the right hand side. It just needs a couple of washes between the motor and the mount just to kick it out to that side a little bit. It's not a big effect, but it's something that might be worth doing. Alright, so I'll have a look how it's mounted up inside now. So there's a close-up of the air unit there. Just got a little bit of plastic under here so that it doesn't pull through the foam. There's the R9 mini access, OTA, whatever you want to call it. As I said in the previous video, I fried the 9-volt power supply on the flight control board, so I'm powering it straight from the balance port of the battery. It's probably better to power it from the battery in on the board, because you can disconnect the XT60 thinking you've powered it down, but the balance board is still connected, so it's still heating up. So that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. RX and TX from the DJI unit go to a spare TX and RX on the board. I'll show you the iNav setup of that in a little while. You can see in here I've made a little plywood mount for the flight control board, because the existing Ranger mount, which is sort of further in there, is very, very awkward to work with. This way I've got better access, and I can just unscrew that little screw there and pull the board out to work on it a little bit more freely. Although this is a great plane, that's the downfall, is that there's just not easy space to get in there, and you tend to scratch up your fingers with these sharp edges here. Maytech F722 WPX with this lovely little breakout board there. Okay, let's plug it in. It should pick up the driver by itself. Connect. Mixer. So I have the ailerons on a Y lead on S4 on the board. For the rudder I choose RC yaw rather than stabilized yaw. If you have a look at my videos about how iNav uses rudder, I much prefer totally manual control over the rudder, because I don't think iNav understands how a rudder is used all that well. It can cause more problems than it solves. And elevator on S3. That's all for that one. Outputs, nothing unusual there. Just reverse them as required to get the controls working in the correct direction. I have done an auto tune, that's why these numbers aren't 1500, and that may have something to do with the thrust angle offset, that I need these a little bit of roll adjustment there. Ports, this one's more important. Receiver on UART2, GPS on UART3, and DJI FPV VTX on UART5. Nothing fancy in here. I have 3.6 as the pitch degrees so that the plane flies level in angle mode. I probably could drop that down a little bit, I think. I Might go down to 3.4, see what that does. These days I do have permanently enable air mode on because thanks to Darren Lyons we don't see air in the OSD anymore. We probably don't need CPU based serial ports, or do we? Maybe we do. Yeah, no, I don't think we do actually, but I'll leave it on anyway. PID tuning, I increased the defaults up to 10 and 15, seem to be working very nicely. Feed forward, still kept at 50 and 50. Rates in Expo 180 degrees and 180 degrees per second. They're the only relevant ones really. Increase the max roll angle and max pitch angle to 60 degrees. Most important one, the receiver. I'm using a serial based receiver, and this one is set up for F port, being an access receiver. That means I have S-Bus and Smart port on the same line, so it's only 3 wires connecting from the receiver to the flight control board, and the signal wire connects to the TX on the relevant UART2 I think it is, and that takes care of all the telemetry as well as the signal, so that's nice. Modes, I have arm, angle, alt hold, position hold, return to home, manual, launch, which I never use, auto trim and auto tune. And this is the OSD. This screen kind of helps you lay out what is appearing in the DJI goggles, but you can see I've got the craft name off center so that appears in the center in the goggles, and that will give alerts and error messages. I have voltage. I don't need voltage because that actually appears down here in the DJI goggles. RSSI, no, satellites, RSSI, mode, current, speed, altitude and distance to home. And that's probably all that's relevant actually. Alright, so I'm going to take my board out. So that is my receiver connection, ground, power, RX and TX. That's the F port coming into TX. So pull that one out. This is the DJI RX and TX connection. This is the GPS. I have power and voltage and RX and TX there. Rudder, aileron, Y lead, elevator, ESC. So I've just got a sort of a little clamp piece of plastic there, and then that just hooks under another piece of plastic there. Battery cable and ESC, so we'll pull that off. So now to power the DJI, I'm going to tap off a little servo style lead coming off here. That means when I disconnect the XT60 I'll be turning the air unit off. Alright, here we go with the motor offset a little bit. Well, we're up and away now. Just let it fly. It's going a little bit to the right. Always fun to follow the train. Can't keep up with it. Oh, doing all right. This is cool. Oh, I better come back home. Try return to launch. Seems to be going very well. So a little bit of thrust angle to the right may have done the job, and I should be going to one of my safe home points. Should start turning before it gets back to me. Yeah, it's doing that. Love this safe home. Bring it into land. Flying nicely now. Still turning to the right. Just gliding in now, so I'm going to tweak the rudder, hopefully get it to track a bit straighter, but that's flying quite nicely now. I'm happy with that.